All right, and we are live. Just gonna do another sound check here, make sure everything is good to go. See if we got sound over. Check here. Oh, we've got sound. Yes, we do. Fantastic. All right, so we are back again. I wanted to do a shorter stream on a follow-up to a case that I follow for quite a bit now, and it's regarding the civil lawsuit against the city of Los Angeles for the neglect to uphold claims that the mayor of Los Angeles, currently under the wing of Karen Bass, made all sorts of remarks about how they're going to reduce homelessness. There's various programs they're alleging to meet that particular goal, from nonprofit collaboration to unique programs that they're claiming where people can open up parking lots and essentially have monitored shelters, or people can park with their vehicles and sleep safely where the lots are monitored, to of course, traditional shelters where services are alleged to be offered, and centers dedicated to people that have particular needs, whether they be a sober living facility and the like. And I wanted to start just taking a quick two steps back and giving sort of the 30,000 foot view on what this case is even about. So it's a federal case launched by the LA Alliance, which is a consortium of private citizens, and these are primarily people that frankly are actually investors at heart. They have various real estate investments of their own, and their concern came out of the fact that their property values around particularly the downtown area were dropping significantly due to the repeated vandalism and ongoing chaos that is the rampant homelessness crisis, which many people don't want to believe. um, and many other videos surrounding this topic really don't do it justice to the fact that it's a crisis that is entirely manufactured deliberately. And what I mean by that is you have direct collusion between the government, the real estate developers, and bankers to manufacture a crisis that does not need to exist, really should have no reason to exist, especially in an exorbitant and wealthy area like Los Angeles. Yet, here we are today finding ourselves with the reality that it does exist. It's gotten repeatedly worse. It will continue to get worse. And the goal of this case really isn't necessarily what people might think of it is at the front end. People believe that this case is supposed to essentially be used to prosecute each and every of these officials and finally solve the issue of homelessness at heart. But that's just not how these lawsuits work. And unfortunately, when you have such complex systems of power and control like the homelessness industrial complex, people tend to project what they wish and what we obviously think that justice should be uh in situations like this. But unfortunately, that's just not how it works. And I wanted to explain to you some of these latest developments, but just wanted to give that picture of how this case even came to be in the first place. So it's not a, coming just out of the goodwill, the nature of their hearts. These essentially are business people that got really pissed off that their real estate development investments were going down the can, and it's because the city has neglected to keep its end of the bargain by providing the stated number of housing units for people to have short-term and long-term housing, and the ultimate goal being to reduce that overall, not only total number of homeless overall, but the overall poverty rate, which is the really uh more interesting metric of them all. It's not just the number of homelessness, but the uh rate of poverty as a whole, which if you're not familiar with, it incorporates things like lack of access to housing, whether it be due to manufactured synthetic increased cost of housing for a wide variety of factors, as well as lack of upward mobility for jobs that don't pay well, no careers, the obstacles to getting specific jobs, like for example, needing to have a master's degree for basically what is a entry level job that requires no sort of specialized skills and the like. And so that is ultimately when people talk about the homelessness industrial complex, that's one part of it where you have synthetic manufactured poverty. And the way and how it happens is the collusion of banking institution to use mechanisms like nonprofits to essentially treat housing as a business asset, as an investment to gain return on an investment in a business aspect, not in a humanitarian approach, not in a holistic approach. And the end goal being profiteering, and at all costs. And so, the most interesting thing about comparing the United States of America to other countries is that the use of housing as a um, portfolio asset specifically with the intent of increasing uh, shareholder value, increasing wealth, not for individuals but for corporations and businesses, is extremely rampant in the U.S. And the U.S. has probably one of the largest, especially in the developed world, of a homelessness crisis and a poverty crisis, despite having such abundance of wealth, and especially in the Los Angeles area where you have such diversified industries ranging from oil and gas, medicine, the entertainment industry, technology. Everything you could possibly think of is in LA. Of all the places to find some sort of industry in, LA has pretty much all of them, and is very well diversified with a very strong tax base, a lot of wealth, a lot of assets here. And yet still to this day, the cost of everything, not just housing, it continues. I covered the trial a little bit ago in June. There was an order that was issued, and I want to refresh people's memory on what that order by the presiding judge, David O'Carter, who, for those of you that don't know, this guy is a Vietnam vet. He was a Marine. He's basically as tough as they come, no nonsense type of guy, incredibly smart, and does not tolerate any sort of. His courtroom was not only the cleanliness of the room, but the decorum, and the fact that when there were countless other people that were homeless attending, who were basically, giving the middle finger to the city and the lawyers of the city. One guy actually was waving around a pickle juice box while while the city was cross-examining witnesses. Carter did not care one bit for it at all. He just let it go on. He made no fuss about it. He let the guy wave his pickle juice. He didn't get in trouble for it because he knew ultimately these people that were watching absolutely hate the city. He hates the city for the total rampant fraud and misuse of public funds to align their personal lives and pockets, as well as those of their buddies in the real estate and banking industry. He knows that this is one giant fraudulent scheme, and many of his, unfortunately, combat veteran friends have succumbed to homelessness, and he knows very well the toll of homelessness, this manufactured homelessness, and this manufactured poverty, and the impact it's had on people. And in fact, some of the testimony included very clearly that just from the numbers they can measure today, still to this day, right now, with the trajectory increasing on a weekly basis, a minimum just in Los Angeles City alone, a minimum of 62 people are dying due to being homeless. And so that was a very, very real, raw, and honestly, the only time I've actually seen the judge actually take a step back and basically you could see the wear it had on him, right? I mean, he was up there for hours and hours of testimony, but the one time he truly looked tired, and the one time he truly looked like his heartstrings were being pulled at, was when that testimony came out that at a minimum in Los Angeles City alone, just based on the numbers they can validate, they can count, it is about 62 people minimum a week that die in LA due to homelessness. And so the gravity weighs heavily on the judge's shoulders. He has personal stake on it, and he knows how deeply corrupt the system is. But the point of this suit, right? What's the point, and where is this lawsuit overall? And what happened in that order he granted? Because a lot of people have been saying, well, why not just hurry up and give conservatorship in the traditional sense and transfer ownership? But it's just not how it works. And that's not the best use of this case. See, the power of a judge really, and when you take a look at it at the end of the day, is nothing more than a public record keeper. The best that he can do, not only for himself, not only for those that are homeless, and not only for prosecutors, and not only for we the people, but for everybody involved, the best thing that he can do is mandate that each and every conversation, document, and everything else in between is made public and to be forced to be heard in open court. All of the conversations between different administrators within the city, county, and state level to be mandated that all those interactions, all those documents, all those emails, those phone call logs, the content on those phone calls, all of that be made public as it pertains to addressing this issue of the misuse of public funds. And so the order that uh, Carter granted back in June stated that on a quarterly basis, the city must provide and show exactly what it's doing to meet the numbers that it's stated to reduce homelessness and increase the number of affordable housing units, and on a weekly basis to provide a update to the court via the appointed auditors for the city, state, and county level, and an independent, which are all independently appointed by the court, as well as a presiding judge separate from Carter to monitor as well and review all of the work that is being done at the city, county, and state level on this topic, to give all of those reports, all those emails on a weekly basis to the court and have a meeting about it in an open court where a reporter is present, the reports are all submitted openly, and that was really the legal mastermind that is Carter. And frankly, honestly, when you take a look at it, really the only decision that he could have done to mandate that the city have to cooperate in such a fashion and submit all of that correspondence and records in public open court, and have to attend in public open court in that weekly fashion to answer for what they've done, and to put names to each of those documents, and to see what it is that the city does or does not do. Is the city, in fact, actually obeying the order to submit this information and these records to the appointed auditors? Is the city actually doing their part, not only by the order of the court, meaning are they actually obeying a court order, but are they actually showing true, honest, good faith to say, yes, we understand this is a serious issue. Yes, we understand that we care about our vulnerable people. Yes, this is very important, near and dear to us. And yes, we are truly working to actually address this and actually stick to what we promised the American people, and especially the residents of the city of Los Angeles. Are they actually showing themselves to be operating good faith or not? And the latest report we have here, dated November 7th of 2025, by one of the one of the auditors, Special Master Michelle Martinez, and Monitor Daniel B. Gary. Martinez handles the city and county level correspondence, and Daniel is her backup. They have shown, thanks to these mandated, forced, compelled public hearings, that and each and every time that Michelle Martinez, Daniel, and every other court appointed auditor to that when they've tried to work with the city in obtaining this information, and all the emails that you can see attached to this minute order here, you can read it for yourself. But basically what it says is that the city and county and state have deliberately blocked all of these efforts and have been the absolute biggest pain in the ass, deliberately so, refusing to give up information, refusing to cooperate, refusing to hand over records as ordered by the court, and have called for sanctions to be held in contempt for the continued blatant disregard dating all the way back to June of this year. That is the rampant contempt and disgust that we are seeing documented in extreme fashion. And thanks to that modified conservatorship that Carter has granted, which again isn't really a conservatorship, it's more of a continued mandated minimum 5-year public reporting of exactly what these different government agencies are and are not doing to address the very same issue of homelessness that they claim to be so passionate and spirited and put public funding towards. Now, we the people have already known this, right? I mean, it's one thing to say that we the people know this fraud is going on, that there's this major resentment and contempt by government officials, and that they're conspiring with various other third parties, whether it be the use of nonprofits to buy up real estate, hide it from the market, and basically treat it as a private business investment, giving out management contracts to their buddies that own HVAC companies or other middle management companies, whether it be the land deals with developers in the 50-year plus range, where the interest on those real estate assets is really how the city and all these bankers are really making the money, and not just the construction of the hotels or these roach motels, as I call them, or the outright blatant lies where they're saying units exist at a particular address, where in fact the auditors since the June order have shown that many of these addresses don't even exist, that these units aren't even real. It's one thing to speculate and to say outside of a court of law, but this brings all of those people in and shows and documents it for a permanent public record that this is a very clear rigged game that all of these government actors are doing deliberately and should be held in contempt for their disgusting behavior. And it's not a one-off. It's not even 5 times. It's always, all the time. And that is the point of this case. It's the goal ultimately is for this to aid in future prosecution, because the issue is not really centered just to Los Angeles, but it's beautiful to see this be documented in such a large metro city like Los Angeles, because again, when we take a look at the economic background, the economic profile of the city of LA, it is the absolute most diverse economic portfolio you could ever have. Oil and gas, manufacturing, medicine, software technology, entertainment, research and development, all of that and more is literally all in LA. It is a thriving tax base, there's lots of wealth, and yet continuously prices on everything continue to go up, and continually the government says they're offering programs and services to handle these issues, and yet we are seeing live with these court records that the exact opposite is happening, that there is in fact great collusion and sheer hatred and contempt of the public for even having the audacity to call them out on their clear fraud. And one of those prosecutions of this fraud has already happened, in fact. The newly appointed U.S. attorney for the District of LA has already prosecuted 2 developers that have engaged in this racketeering scheme. And there's many more to come. but that is all a thing. All of that stems as a result for all the documentation and record keeping that this lawsuit uh, brought to the forefront. It's now it's officially now in court. It's no longer just hearsay. It's no longer just speculation. This is very real. Okay. And it's opened up a lot of what, again, we the people suspected. I personally sat there in June and I saw the Skid Row board of the lead board member of the board of trustees for the Skid Row Board of Trustees fund that was dedicated to aiding homelessness. This person was making a $250,000 a year salary plus various other bonuses and incentives, and she testified on the stand that all of her other board members all knew that they were not spending a dime on actually using that public funds allocated for homelessness on aiding the reduction of homelessness and treating poverty. That in fact they were using it to line their own pockets, that they were using it to cut sweetheart deals for management companies, for building and never finishing certain construction projects, and having this entire very well organized racketeering scheme to defraud the American people of their hard-earned tax dollars and use it to line their personal buddies' pockets in their own pockets. And that was not the only board member we saw. Time and time again, I sat there and I saw various board members testify, including city officials testify, that they knew what they were doing is wrong and that they had sheer contempt of the American people. And no longer is this just speculation or hearsay. This is true. This is real, and it's happening in a city that it should never happen. LA, of all the cities in America, it should not be happening. And so this is what this most recent meeting minutes shows, that that the two auditors are saying that this has been going on since the order came out in June, that the city and county and state are not cooperating, that they're not handing over information, that they're in blatant disregard of a court order, and that they just don't give a shit. And it's time for sanctions on these individuals in particular. And that's the state of where this case currently resides. In addition to the weekly and quarterly reports as mandated by the court to be submitted in open court for everybody to see. It's a very sad state of affairs, but again, you have to remember that the judge can only do so much. The only thing a judge can do is make all these records, all the communication and correspondence be compelled to be pushed publicly and establish a permanent public record. That's essentially where this case is at this point. We got to see another filing lately was also the actual contract that the city used representing the city in this matter. And we actually got to see how much the city has paid out just in the trial term, by the way, just in this trial period that occurred in June. And the number will shock you. Frankly, I'm actually surprised it wasn't higher, but the number will shock you. The city paid out approximately $1 million just for that trial period. $1 million. So not only are they already defrauding the public funds and not using it for treating homelessness and eradicating poverty, but they're using our tax dollars to also pay for this litigation. It's really such a slap in the face when you think about it. But it's good because this case at the very least made all these records public, that otherwise if it went just towards the stereotypical route of conservatorship, we would have never gotten to see these records openly, freely, everything from at the Central District of California Court's website. I put a pin in the description. You can check it out there. But I just wanted to give you guys that quick summary as to where this case is overall so far. And yeah, I mean, there you have it. You have the auditors independently appointed by the court, very clearly and explicitly making mention that goal for them to get information. And we can see that now. It's in a court of law. It's no longer hearsay. And so with that, I'll keep it short and sweet. And this is what's going on all across America, by the way. This isn't just LA. This is a universal, of course, American issue, but a universal issue across the globe, but especially in America. Nonprofits are not what people think they are. And these board leaders of nonprofits are deeply tied and connected to investment bankers and real estate developers. And it's a very, very well oiled machine where the tactics are the same, even though the cities are different. The fundamentals are you use the nonprofits as a way to take off and buy out real estate away from the market. You make policy promises that certain things like poverty and homelessness will be reduced, but in fact they're not, and they continue to grow exponentially. And people need to understand that, because a lot of people have been duped into just shutting off your critical thinking whenever they hear the term nonprofit. They immediately think that humanitarian good and do no, and they never do any evil, but that's just not true. And that is a very big wake up call for a lot of people, and it's permanently recorded thanks to this case, especially how it's being done in the city of LA. So again, I wanted to keep it short and sweet, and that's where we are with this case. What I expect to continue happening is more and more records of contempt to be documented by the auditors. One of the auditors that the city suggested uh, was actually turned away by the court. Carter said the person that the city had recommended, because of their close connections to McKinsey, and specifically their involvement in the aiding of the increase of the opioid crisis, the court absolutely did not accept that recommendation by the city. I forget his name. I made a Twitter post about it a couple of months ago. And I thought that was very beautiful to see. And it just shows, right? Despite all of this being documented and written down, the sheer contempt and resentment that the city has for people to even have the audacity to recommend basically a drug peddler. The guy, the one of the guys that was a key contributor in manufacturing the opioid crisis in America, especially with oxycodone. That's what the city thinks of the people, and so it's just an absolute shame. So that's where it is. I saw one good question. Has it been explored as to what other boards and board members are on and how they're interconnected? Yes, actually, that was some of the witnesses that were made to testify and on cross-examination actually were asked that same question. And during that trial, all those transcripts, which are still freely available to download, they actually brought in people from Sacramento, San Francisco, San Diego, various other cities, and even outside the state of California that testified to their interconnectedness, how they knew each other from college, from their business dealings. Pretty much all of them had the same profile. They had connections to the banking industry. They were nonprofit board leaders. And that is the interconnected web into how the individuals locally in LA were connected to much broader rings of the homelessness industrial complex spread out all over America. So yes, that absolutely was one of the biggest key things that we got to see that came out during testimony during the trial, as well as various other subsequent pleadings thereafter as part of that order that Carter issued to mandate the release of those records, and that communication the city is having not only internally with the city, but also outside to the county and outside to other cities and states in the U.S. and otherwise. So that's the beauty of keeping this continued audit, is what I call it, with this 5-year period to mandate the release of all this information to aid, and hopefully the prosecutors, state and federally, step up to the plate and start charging these people felonies for what they've done, for how they've ruined American lives, for how they've stolen public funds, and had the audacity to try to gaslight us and say that what they're doing is not happening, despite us literally having a permanent public record showing exactly what they're doing and how they're doing it. So, that's a good question. All right, with that, I'll keep it short. Thanks again, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.